Ceci n'est pas un musée.
Well, clearly, this is not a museum. That was André Malraux, but we will have a conversation on museums today. And we believe that it is a very special event because we have friends from China, Europe, but also America. So this is a very unique format to discuss about a fascinating topic, museums. And we showed the short video of Malraux because we understood while reading Malraux that, well, museums, they have been around for 250 years around. They have been changing because of technology. And while we speak, they are deeply impacted by technological disruptions. And we will discuss this today. It's really a great pleasure for me to open this dialogue one on museums. We will continue the conversation in the future, but I wanted, while I introduce our first speaker, Mr. Alex Fan, also to thank him and his team for the wonderful support they have provided for today's event. So let us, in this short opening ceremony, welcome Mr. Alex Fan, who is in Beijing at the moment.
大家好，我发言的主题是时间。今天中国、欧洲、美国的朋友们在这个论坛里发出合作的倡议。首先，我们解决了时差问题，我们分处于不同的时区之中。我们的祖国有着截然不同的历史，也有着求同存异、合作竞争的当下。但可以肯定的是，我们拥有一个共同的未来，时间是我们的朋友。而对于时间观念的认知，我们的祖先与我们有着根本的不同。今天的人认为时间是线性的，年月日时都用一个数字来表达，开始、过程、结束都是单一链条上的一个又一个独立事件。人处于不断渐进的坐标轴的时间点上，而古人认为世界是周而复始的。潮起潮落，月盈月亏，日出日落，四季交替，一切都是一个环形中的循环往复。你看中国古代的阴阳太极，古印度的四大吠陀，你看巴特农神庙，你看达芬奇把完美比例的人体放在方形和圆形之中，还有普鲁斯特的追忆似水年华，巴赫的音乐，一切都向我们启示了永恒，让我们去探究生命的意义，让我们有勇气和智慧去面对那些未知和不确定性。我们的祖先给我们留下了辉煌璀璨的文明，这是人类共同的宝贵遗产。而文明留下了数不尽的痕迹，存在于我们的血脉之中，也存在于博物馆的高墙里。但博物馆真的有墙吗？在我看来，每一座博物馆就像一片海洋，没有形态，没有边界，浩浩荡荡，无穷无尽。而总有人在这时光之海里面寻找珍宝，去打捞历史带给我们宝贵的馈赠，去用有限的生命来挑战无限。我爱博物馆，因为我可以看到人类精神最高贵的一面。我希望，因为我们的努力，会有越来越多的人走入博物馆。我也希望会有更多的博物馆能够走入人心。新冠疫情席卷全球，这是自二战以来博物馆被迫与公众隔绝最久的一次。而灾后的重建是我们要面对的首要问题。也许这是一个漫长而艰难的过程，但我想没有什么可以比艺术更能疗愈人心。我们应该携起手来， 文明不是孤岛，而是没有间隔的相连的海洋。我们要做到的就是找到彼此。高品质的国际展览，学者的交流与合作，出版，互联网和高科技所传递的优质的人文内容，将是我们合作的具体领域。这个论坛虽然只有2个小时，我们的发言很快也会变成历史的瞬间，但我更希望这个论坛是一粒种子，因为在这个历史里，我们共同孕育了未来。谢谢你们。
Écoute, je te laisse faire en sorte que je puisse être visible.
Mr. Fan, and despite all the difficulties that you have mentioned, of course, COVID is still a reality. The work you have been doing with the wonderful exhibitions you have presented in Shenzhen is extraordinary, and the support you are providing for today's event is also a symbol of the fact that you are a very important cultural bridge between civilizations. I told you what is very special today is the fact that we have friends from the US involved, and in fact, this initiative, the Museums Cooperation Initiative, is a product of the China-Europe-America Global Initiative. And in this global initiative, we have a board of trustees. And in this board of trustees, we have the chance to have Mr. David Roth, a very successful business person, but very much involved in arts and culture. And I would like to welcome Mr. David Roth. You will understand that because of the time difference, David prepared a video for us to see, to watch today. Thank you in advance, David.
Greetings, I'm David Roth here in New York, and what an extraordinary event this is. Thank you for inviting me to become a part of this. What a day today to be able to bring together Chinese and European and American intellectuals and experts to discuss how to share our humanity via museums, via the institutions that have for centuries helped to catalog and display and help us understand what makes us uniquely human. And of course, helps us understand what makes each other uniquely human. And now, with the advent of virtual reality and this extraordinary tools of the internet, we are able to share via museums, share our culture in ways that we have never been able to do before. But now, whether you're in Paris or here in New York or in Shanghai, we can connect with each other and connect our cultures together. And today, now, with what has happened in the world over the past year and the way the world is now spinning, we need that more than anything. We need to be able to connect and understand each other, understand our histories, understand our presence, understand our context, understand what makes each other human. And as Catherine Locke said about museums, museums tell stories, and that's what history is, isn't it? I love that quote because it's so true. Museums tell our human stories. So it's an honor to be with you today. I look forward to hearing about this conversation. I look forward to being a part of future conversations. And more than anything, I look forward to understanding more about each of you and all of us together through what we can do to make the museums of the present and of the future even better able to help us all live a connected life together. Thanks very much. Have a wonderful conversation today. I look forward to being with you again in person. All my best.
C'est bon. J'ai plus de son.
Indeed, as David said, we will have the opportunity to meet soon in person, probably also a combination of online and offline conversation. It will be at the end of this year, but it is very important in our dialogue to have an American component. It's a great pleasure for me now to introduce the next speaker from Belgium. Bernard DeWitt is a friend, and thanks to his organization, the Chamber of Commerce, Belgium-China Chamber of Commerce, we can have this kind of event. This is very, very, very precious, your support, Bernard. Before I give you the floor, Bernard, I would like also to thank, because some people are in the audience, we cannot see them, but especially to thank all the students from the wonderful University of Zhejiang and also their professor too. But please, Bernard, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you for your kind words. And first of all, I would like to say that it's an honor for me and for our chamber to be part of the organizers of this very interesting event. We are very honored to be co-organizer together with the China, Europe, America Global Initiative. And I was very interested by the speech of Mr. Roth, showing the best part of our humanity. I would like also to thank Mr. Fan and the East Langkun International Culture Company, because without this kind of company, such events could not be organized, and we need people really involved in art, culture, and the dissemination of it. And this is also the reason why it is so important to have a museum nowadays who are the best bridge between different cultures. At a time when we hear more and more people speaking of isolationism, speaking of decoupling, speaking of mistrust, museums play a very important role to understand each other better, to have more contact with the other in order to avoid conflicts that could lead to the worst. I would say that art and culture have always been universal global powers which people all over the world can appreciate. Events like this enable people to understand each other better, to have a common goal. And I'm very much convinced that today we will have the best speakers with the best knowledge in their field. And like you, I'm very keen to listen to them. I would like to end this very short introduction by a word of the British humorist George Bernard Shaw, which said, "Which painting in the National Gallery would I save if there was a fire?" Well, the answer is the one nearest to the door, of course. So we are now going to the door and listening to our speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bernard, and thank you for the wonderful joke by Bernard Shaw. But seriously, when you spoke about decoupling, we could discuss a lot, Bernard, what to do when people are talking about decoupling. Well, actually, we don't talk, we do what we are doing today. This is our answer to this rhetoric, dangerous rhetoric of decoupling. Thank you very much, Bernard, and thank you also to your team in Brussels at the Chamber of Commerce. And of course, you will be back, Bernard, at the end of this conversation for a conclusion, and always very wise, full of wisdom, your speeches. Now, this is really a great honor to introduce the next speaker. when I approached Madame Bokova some months ago and sharing with her our desire to do such a thing, a conversation between Europe, China, and the US on museums, Madame Irina Bokova, former Director General of the UNESCO, was immediately very supportive. And therefore, she wanted to be with us. You will also listen to Professor Sarah Kanderdin very soon now in the panel chaired by Mr. Sylvain Amic. And Professor Kanderdin has been recommended by Irina Bokova. So I feel her presence very much today, and it's a great honor because all of us, we know that she has been a wonderful Director General of a very important institution, the UNESCO. So please let us listen to the wisdom of Madame Bokova, and you will see that she opens new perspectives on today's topic.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by saying how delighted I am to be at the launch of the China-Europe-America Museums Cooperation Initiative, jointly with the Belgian-Chinese Chamber of Commerce. This conference resonates deeply with my experience as Director General of UNESCO during a time when the first ever recommendation specially related to the world of museums was adopted in 2015, the recommendation concerning the protection and promotion of museums and collections, their diversity, and their role in societies. You can judge from the title that this recommendation recognized the significant transformation of museum institutions in recent decades, as well as the significant role that they play in society, particularly for the protection and promotion of cultural and natural diversity, but also for dialogue, education, development, and social cohesion. Museums stand at the crossroads of several social challenges today, as a source of jobs and revenues at the heart of the creative economy, fostering a sense of belonging and social cohesion, and as key drivers of international cooperation. They are on the front line of the fight against illicit trafficking in cultural property, and unfortunately are primary targets in times of conflict. Museums have also a close link with the economy and with quality of life, particularly in the urban and tourist development of cities and regions. Of course, economic challenges and income generation must not be at the expense of the main functions of museums, which can play a central role in social cohesion, the building of citizenship, and reflection on collective identities. Museums enjoy also incredible opportunities today, opportunities linked to the new information and communication technologies, which offer major development possibilities for both museums and their users. Globalization allows greater mobility of collections, professionals, visitors, and ideas, and thus better understanding among peoples. All these ideas were very well captured in the congratulatory message of President Xi Jinping addressed to the UNESCO High-Level Forum on Museums held in Shenzhen in 2016, in which I had also the privilege of participating. President Xi said, "Museums are cultural palaces that preserve and carry forward human civilization. Museums are bridges that link our past to the present and future. Their contribution to promoting mutual learning of civilizations in the world is distinctive and remarkable. In recent years, Chinese museums of various types have made substantial progress in infrastructure construction, research, preservation of collections, providing free access to the public, serving the needs of the people, and promoting international cultural exchanges. President Xi invited further the participants to build consensus on how to bring back to life the diverse collections of museums and how to increase the global audience's access to them so that they can be instrumental to preserving cultural diversity, to increasing understanding among peoples of the world, and to advancement of human civilization. This forum, ladies and gentlemen, was a major opportunity to help the museum community craft much needed tools to address critical issues. It adopted the Shenzhen Declaration on Museums and Collections that called on all stakeholders to enhance the role and capacities of museums in protecting cultural heritage, adopting ethical and technological standards, and developing cooperation at the international level. The declaration also underlined the moral obligation and capacity of museums to counter illicit trafficking in cultural objects. It encouraged museums to adopt a rigorous code of ethics and to develop, where possible, cooperative projects. And last but not least, the COVID-19 pandemic is still seriously affecting cultural institutions around the world. A dire situation for museums and museum professionals, with around 95% of institutions forced to close in order to safeguard the well-being of staff and visitors, resulting in serious economic, social, and cultural repercussions. As the International Council of Museums said in a statement on COVID-19, and I quote, "The healing process of our societies after the COVID-19 crisis will be long and complex. Museums, as incomparable places of meeting and learning for everybody, will have an important role to play in repairing and strengthening the social fabric of communities affected. I am confident that your initiative will encourage governments, experts, and academia to make a contribution in this endeavor. I wish you a very fruitful work and thank you for your attention."
Always a great pleasure to listen to the wisdom of Madame Irina Bokova. So once again, thank you, Mr. Alex Fan, Mr. David Roth from New York, Bernard DeWitt from Brussels, and we will listen again to Bernard. And of course, thank you to Madame Irina Bokova. Now, really, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce the next sequence. I think when I look at the program, it's really remarkable. The depth, the diversity. I hope that we think about the diversity of the next sequence. And in order to moderate this sequence, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce Mr. Sylvain Amig from Rouen, probably talking from Rouen at the moment. In any case, a compatriot, and I would like to salute also General Henri de Mellège. I feel that today, despite the fact we are talking about technology, but somehow Napoleon is watching us. So look, I will let you, Sylvain, to deal with this wonderful sequence, and I will enjoy myself the conversation. Merci beaucoup, Sylvain, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, David, for And thanks to all distinguished speakers for these very inspiring words. It's not easy to speak after Napoleon and after Irina Bokova, but I will try to do something. I would like to go back to the first images of André Malraux you show us. And this image is very brief, remind us who he was, the French Minister of Culture, a writer. And you know, it reminds us the way he chose to share his vision on cultural heritage. First of all, he was a writer. So for him, it was a question of words, written words or spoken words. But just after that, the question was how to share this knowledge as wide as possible in his time. And as he was French Minister of Culture, he chose technology to share his vision. He used photo, he used radio, he used movies and newspaper. So this first session today is all about culture and technology. And we will focus on museum and cyberspace. I would like to start with the data found 2 years ago in an official report published by the French Ministry of Culture. It is a global survey that gives every 10 years a very precise idea of cultural trends in French society. And the result of this new survey was a huge shift in the behaviors between the new generation and the previous one. Under the age of 25 years, the cultural experiences are for 80% exclusively made through new technologies. That means we are at the dawn of a complete change in the relationship between citizen and cultural institution. During the pandemic, all of us have experienced how new technologies have been useful to maintain our societies alive. We have been able to work from distance, to keep in touch with family, friends, and colleagues, to learn anything from foreign languages to cooking, solving problems of everyday life through new technology. For museums, it has been a wonderful opportunity to move faster on these new fields. And after several lockdown, the offer for digital resources has increased tremendously. Most of the museums offer now free access to virtual tours of their collection or their exhibition, but also talks, video resources that gives to everybody the capacity to learn from distance and to develop their knowledge without any assistance. This has changed completely the place of the visit of the museum in cultural practice. Now, a real visit can be prepared or completed online. People from far away, far from your museum, have access to our digital contents, even they cannot travel. In Rouen, for example, we have a special program on the internet called the Visitors Chamber. People from all over the world can choose online the works of art that will be removed from storage and exhibited. We receive connection and votes from all over the world, even from Korea and China. I'm not sure that all these people will be able to visit our museum, but they have been involved in the process and we shared together something, and for a while, they were part of our community. So these new standards are obviously an opportunity for museums to increase their audience and to keep in touch with the digital natives who are their future visitors. But in another way, many studies about the impact of new technology on climate change suggest that we need to reduce the footprints of our institution on carbon consumption. This is probably the limit of these new trends for responsible institutions. And this is a new challenge to balance our strategies. I'm sure that the distinguished speakers who participate to this first session will give a new light on this paradox. So now I would like to introduce the first speaker, Yu Zhuan, who is the vice president of Baidu Group, the general manager of Baidu Baike and Baidu NetDisk. Baidu, as a world-leading artificial intelligence company with a world-leading Chinese search engine, processes over a billion of search requests for more than 100 countries and regions every day. It is one of the most important portal websites for netizens to get information and services in Chinese. So I believe your vision about cooperation between technologies and museum will be really interesting. Mr. Yu Zhuan, it's your turn. I give you the floor.
各位文博行业的专家和老师，大家好，我是阮瑜，很高兴有这样一个机会与在座的各位一同交流文博行业的未来发展和趋势。那百度一直以来十分重视文博行业的发展，早在2012年，百度百科就正式推出了百科博物馆计划，那深耕文博领域的这个数字化建设。截止目前呢，我们已经跟全球335家的博物馆建立了这个数字化的深度合作。今年呢5月18号这个国际博物馆日的主题是博物馆的未来恢复与重塑。那经历过疫情，让我们对文博行业的发展也有了更多深入的思考。对于全球博物馆和用户而言，在当前的环境下，他们到底需要什么？其实也是我们一直思考的问题。那首先呢，博物馆希望跟用户保持着稳定的交流。在特殊的环境下，全球众多的博物馆在线下的展览是无法开启的。也正是由此，越来越多的博物馆通过社交网络和这个在线上跟用户进行这个交流和互动，开通社交的账号拍摄短视频。那一时间在直播云游博物馆的这个方向上也非常的热闹。那其次呢，是用户对于参与博物馆的这个精神需求越来越强烈。那博物馆不仅仅在人们心中是一个单纯的展览的场所，那在疫情之下，其实它也被赋予了更多的社会文化价值。观众呢，可以通过这个线上线下的博物馆去享受这种触手可及的感受，也需要这种面对面的交流，更需要权威的知识内容，在博物馆中能汲取更多的养分。那这一切都是可以基于博物馆的数字化来实现的。那百度百科在过去的1年，其实一直着力在博物馆云名片的这个方向大力发展。那从产品、技术、流量和 IP 4个维度全面去升级这种全新的博物馆数字化。那使用百度百科博物馆这个云名片的话，其实博物馆可以自主的通过视频直播、VR 全景等多种媒体形式去展示馆藏文物，进行知识的科普。同时呢，我们这个产品还打通了像百度地图、百度电商和百度小程序，博物馆可以轻松的实现非常多的类似于如文创这种的衍生服务。那除此之外的话，这个名片。
Dear Sylvain, I think we
Thank
have
you.
a connection problem.
Yes, Mrs. Yu Zhuan, did you hear us? So it was very interesting to hear how the new technology can help the developing of museums, supporting their connection with visitors through videos and also to online visits, but also for commercial proposal like a card of fidelity and program to earn points and to earn and to sell things through the internet. So maybe if we cannot connect again with Mrs. Yu Zhuan, we could move to the next panelist and the next speaker, and maybe we will be back to Mrs. Yu Zhuan after. So it's my privilege to introduce Henri de Medledge, a French citizen, so a compatriot. Bonjour, Monsieur de Medledge. you are the director of the Invalids Museum, and which is in France, the National Army Museum, one of the greatest institutions in Paris. After graduating from the École Spéciale Militaire de Saint-Cyr in 1989, you joined the 2nd Marine Infantry Regiment as a lieutenant, and you served your first term in former Yugoslavia in 1882, and then participated first as captain and then as unit commander in various external operations like Sarajevo in 1985, former Yugoslavia in 1986, or Chad in 1997. So between 2012 and 2017, as a staff of the French Territorial Army, you held the position of Deputy Head of Strategic Studies Office, and then Head of Logistics Support Office. In 2018, you took the position of Deputy General in Command of Training and Joint Combat Schools and General Commander of the Specialist Training Centers. And now you are at the head of the National Army Museum, which is one of the most creative museums in France on new technology. So maybe it's not surprising for people coming from the army to be such aware about new technology. But I'm really glad to hear how you can share your vision about new technology and museums to all our audience today. Mr. Henry de Medlage, it's your turn. I give you the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning or evening. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. It's right that I am in charge of a museum which is under the responsibility of the French Ministry of the Armed Forces and contains over 500,000 items from antiquity to present day. These collections make the Musée de l'Armée one of the world's largest museums of military history. My task also include the cultural management of 40% of the Hôtel National des Invalides. The site is home to the Saint-Louis Cathedral and its famous dome, which after the French Revolution became a pantheon dedicated to France's military glories. And since 1840, it has also been the resting place of a great soldier and an emperor who changed Europe, Napoleon I. The site's location in the heart of Paris mirrors its central role in a year dedicated to culture and history as we commemorate the bicentenary of the death of the Emperor of the French. After giving a speech at the Institute of France, the President of the French Republic, Mr. Macron, led a threat at the foot of the Napoleon's tomb, and the ceremony gave him the opportunity to recall where we, the French people, are today and look back at our history. To quote the president, "From the empire, we have renounced the worst, and from the emperor, we have embellished the best." And the Musée de l'Armée is holding nowadays 2 exhibitions focusing on Napoleon to mark the occasion. The first one is called Napoleon is No More, and we are offering a new scientific approach of history, inviting everyone to investigate the facts and compare them with the legends that surround this period. And the inauguration, because of the COVID, of this exposition have been done by internet with a virtual visit until last week, and we can continue to visit thanks to the virtual facilities. this exhibition will run until 31st of October. At the same time, we are showing a contemporary art exhibition called Napoleon Again, and 30 international renowned artists, including Franco-Chinese artist Yan Peming and Chinese-born female artist Shu Ri, have been invited to engage with Napoleon's figure and our collective memory. The results have produced an original visit tour that adds a resolute contemporary layer to the traditional regal splendor of the Invalid. And the exhibition can be seen by everybody until February 22. As these two exhibitions open, I would like to say that the revealing history through a modern prism, in this case, the history of our military conflicts, helps to boost the resilience of our social fabric at the foster peace among nations. Sharing works bears witness to the presence of each one of us in the community of nations. From items of military history tells the story of one country, but also the behavior of all countries that share a common history. The Musée de l'Armée successes have prompted our government to give us an even larger role to play to extend modernizing the site, adding 4 additional visit tours by 2030. For example, the history of our colonial and decolonization period. Thanks to the new media we can offer to the French and other visitors. And also to pursue a dynamic international policy. For example, this year we became an active partners of the Louvre Abu Dhabi from few weeks. And to conclude, as a museum director, I would like to say that my goal through these missions and new means, it's to offer our national and international visitors compelling historical and memorial references, making a particular effort to engage with our young people, the future guardians of our collective memory. And those young peoples use better than me the new means, thanks to the virtual and internet means. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henri de Medledge. And it's true, I would like to invite people to check your website, which is really gorgeous and full of facilities. And I remember you even had initiatives in the video game area. So that's not very usual for a museum in France and for an army museum. So I would like to greet your initiative. Let's now move to the north of Europe and to have a look to the...
Ivan, sorry to interrupt you, but I think Madame Ruan is back.
Very good. Very good. I'm very glad that Mrs. Ran is back, so we can hear you again. I remember you are Vice President of Baidu Group and General Manager of Baidu Bike and Baidu NetDis. So this is a really powerful engine which brews billions of search requests every day. So it's very important for us to understand how you can support the development of museum initiative on the cyberspace. Mrs. Juan, it's your turn. I give you the floor. Thank you very much to be back. Is that working?
阮女士，你可以继续讲。阮女士，刚刚这个网络有问题，你可以继续讲吧。
大概是从哪儿断的，还是我从头讲？
不是的，从最后的，我们最开始我们都大概，你做一个结论吧。你可以现在做一个结论。
今年是吧？
做一个结论，
好。
阮女士，你做一个结论吧。
好，今年呢，百度百科也将持续的对做这个全球博物馆的数字化建设。
你继续讲。
丰富的生态，能听见吗？
能听见。
对，更加权威和丰富的生态，让博物馆在百度百科中获得线上的专属和全面的互动的这种线上名片展示。那在这里，我也代表百度百科向全球的博物馆发出合作的邀请。百度搜索中搜索百度百科博物馆计划，进入官网以后，就可以通过邮件的方式和百度的工作人员取得联系。那博物馆的未来没有一定之规，重塑和恢复还需要非常漫长的路要走，但是博物馆的光芒不会因为疫情而遮蔽，我们一起携手加油。感谢大家。
Thank you very much, Mrs. Yuran. I think your company Baidu is such a great empire in China that if a French or an American or a European museum want to be in touch with a Chinese audience, of course we have to cooperate together, and through new technology and your support, it will be facilitated. So thank you very much for your conclusion. I would like then to move to the north of Europe and to have a new vision with Mr. Eric Messerschmidt. Thank you very much to be with us. You are the director of the Danish Cultural Center. You deal with cultural exchanges between Danish and Chinese parties and projects that aim at establishing long-term relations between Chinese and Danish cultural institutions, stakeholders, artists, and other professionals within the field of creative and experience economy. Also, you have in-depth knowledge of China for more than 15 years, collaboration, intercultural dialogue, conceptual development, communication strategy, production and promotion, that means art, performance, architecture, design, networking, and branding. So it's very interesting for us to hear you as a vision from north of Europe and your vision of relationship between China and Europe and Denmark, of course, and the place of new technology within. Thank you very much, Mr. Messerschmidt. The floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur Amic. Bonjour, ni hao. Hello. I'm actually sitting in Beijing, and I have been in Beijing for the past 20 years. I'm not part of a museum. I'm not a museum professional, but I'm the director of a national cultural center, one of only 7 in China, recognized by the Chinese Ministry of Culture. Thank you so much for this invitation. I think it's a fabulous initiative, and upon contacting the museums back home, I realized that they would all take my seat if they had the opportunity. I have prepared a number of slides. Can you please put on the first?
So I cannot do it, but David, maybe you do it. Okay, very good.
Okay. Much has been said about the digitalization of cultural heritage, and especially artistic production, often with a very altruistic angle about sharing is caring. The truth might lie somewhere between the altruistic and the low practical, but there's no doubt that digitalization will be a permanent part of our work going on forward. In addition, conservation, learning, and dissemination opportunities are too many not to mention here. What I'm going to talk about now, this is the wrong slide, I'm afraid. This is the last. Maybe we should skip them then if there's no real order. What I'm going to talk about is a national research and development program aiming at strengthening cultural citizenship through innovative museum dissemination. Next slide, please. The program consists of a number of projects and a number of associated projects which will be carried out this year and the coming years. Researchers from Danish universities and museums will examine how museums balance experience and information dimensions, both historically and topically, to highlight how new forms of communication have changed and may change in order to strengthen cultural citizenship for more users. Some of the program projects are historically oriented, while the larger part examine contemporary issues. And in each program, a senior researcher, a junior researcher collaborate together with partner museums. The overall thesis of the program is to investigate how museums develop their dissemination both before and now by balancing the way they understand concepts of enlightenment and experience economy. And this is tested by examining the museums, all Danish museums, in 3 analytical dimensions: the museum as an institution, their representation, and their interaction with users. Especially the users dimension is very important. Next step, please. Digitalization has 2 opposing consequences for museums. First is a loss of knowledge in the museums because digital new development is outsourced to external companies, whether the new development actually takes place online or on-site, for instance, with the new museums. But it's also an opportunity to involve new users because digitalization promotes museums rethinking of who they are addressing and why they are doing so. The research shows that museums need to put users at the center, not technology, if they want to encourage the involvement of new groups and reduce the risk of loss of knowledge. A particularly interesting example of the user-centered approach is the new Hans Christian Andersen Museum, which will open next Tuesday in his birth town of Odense. It's basically a museum dedicated to the written word, to his fairy tales, but it's actually an exploration in space and images of the depth of Hans Christian Andersen's imagination, and it relies fully on the digitally driven interaction between the guests and selected fairy tales. There are no objects in the museum. Through virtual reality or augmented reality, the individual visitor will be able to generate her own experience of a particularly fairy tale, which belongs only to that person alone and cannot be shared. As you can tell, it's a radical shift away from an authoritative reading of a collection. And it's also the first exhibition ever about Hans Christian Andersen that doesn't display any single portraits or even some of his iconic figures like the Ugly Duckling or the Little Mermaid. It's entirely digital in space. Next, please. Let's face it, a lot of museum work has practical character, building exhibitions, and here digitalization enables exhibition collaborations that would previously not have been possible. It can bring a single museum's artifacts and knowledge to people around the world, and perhaps even more interesting, knowledge, input, and stories from people around the world can find their way back to the museums. This means that we're not limited to the stories that we collect ourselves, but we can have a tape recorder in our hands and source and activate a human source, but that source can also find the way to the museum. This makes the museum much more multi-voiced and allows it to illuminate the objects from many angles. Now, it's not only about knowledge sharing, but also object sharing across continents. In the past, it was very resource intensive to find out what was in other museums' collections. They are now available online in a way that means that we can both research each other's objects and make brand new exhibitions and disseminations across countries. Denmark has taken the full step, so now all publicly funded museums are online, and both professionals and privates, Danish citizens as well as foreigners, can search in the collections of any of these museums. Of course, there's also the new discussion about where do these objects actually belong to. We know Benin, we know Greece is very much part of this contemporary discussion, and this might lead to fear that some museums will be ripped if they digitize their entire collections, which can then be accessed anywhere else. This is one of the major challenges seen by Danish museums. Last slide, please. Finally, there's nothing that suggests that a physical museum visit will become less attractive through digitalization. Quite the opposite. But where to cut the cut and find the balance between the physical and the digital is still too early to answer. The Danish experience supports the idea that the use of digital technology in itself supports the development of cultural citizenship. The result also shows that museums need time and communication resources from employees if the museums promote digital dialogues between different user spheres and between users and museums, so as to promote cultural citizenship and thereby inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Messerschmidt. Thank you very much for reminding us The Little Mermaid and Christian Andersen. I'm very fond of this fairy tale and of this famous statue in Copenhagen. And I think this experience of a new museum without any works, but with only new technology, interactive technology, it's really impressive. I would like to visit it very soon. Thank you very much also to remind that there is no opposition between digitalization and real visits in a museum. Both are working together, and you extend your audience, you extend also your visits. So thank you very much. I'm moving now to America with Miss John McEntee. You are a member of the U.S. Antiquity Coalition at Missouri Council. You are the former Undersecretary for International Trade in the U.S. Department of Commerce, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of MKDC. You served in a number of senior international trade positions in the U.S. government and visited China many times over the years. You pay close attention to the U.S.-China economic relation and China's development. And as member of the U.S. Antiquity Coalition, maybe you could explain us how the new technology could help us to preserve our heritage on the global trade. So thank you very much to Joan McEntee for your vision. It's your turn. I'll give you the floor. Hi,
greetings. I'm pleased and honored to be here today discussing a need for increased efforts of international cultural integration. Museums and their cross-border cultural exchanges are excellent ways to balance the harsh rhetoric that often accompanies political differences. Museums can present quiet explanations of a country's history and people without prejudicial interpretations, and their exhibitions often heal policy chasms among nations. Wonder has no time for bias, as children look upon soldiers from Xi'an or the smile of a Mona Lisa. However, a critical concern facing museums, as well as their patrons and visitors, relates to another type of threat: the subject of antiquities and their destruction, illegal theft, trafficking, and sales, which can impact the important mission of museums, which is to be the real eyes into a country's soul. But it's not just the terrorists who are trafficking in these illicit activities. Organized criminal gangs are profiting from wide-scale and systematic looting and cultural racketeering. These operatives run global networks from Bulgaria to Shanghai, Bogota to Jerusalem, Istanbul to Tokyo. In fact, the United States is one of the top destinations in the world for these blood antiquities. They are in auction houses, in museums, in private collections, and on the internet, as valuable antiquities ripped from their resting place in the ground show up for sale in the world market. The thieves demand millions, but the money does not go back to the local people who might be justified in looting to support their family. Instead, 95% of the profits go to the middleman or the criminal networks. Museums around the world are irreparably harmed by such illegal activities, and the pandemic has increased this problem. Throughout the past, efforts to fight these crimes dealt almost exclusively with cultural ministries. However, we have learned that in order to stop this illegal activity, it also takes governments, nonprofits, and ordinary citizens, and requires a coordinated international approach. Museums, as keepers of much of the world's cultural exhibitions and wonder, have significant roles to play. China has also implemented increased regulations and implementation programs restricting the sales of looted cultural treasures and those responsible. Yet more international cooperation is essential, and leadership by the world's museums can be a critical catalyst in this fight to protect our cultural heritage, as well as providing examples of global cooperation. Finally, we suggest the most important recommendation. There be an annual summit of the key players from the source and demand countries, law enforcement, the art market, museums, and others, to provide an opportunity for key stakeholders to find ways to work together in support of stopping the robbing of our shared heritage. This could be supported by the major museums from the entities that are the major markets of antiquities trafficking. As the current interest and activity for Asian art and antiquities is currently in huge demand, we could hope that China might play the host country for such a high-profile and international collaborative meeting. Cooperation on the issue of cultural heritage and antiquities protection offers the US, the EU, and China an important opportunity to strengthen their crucial relationship, as the illegal trade in antiquities offers a relatively non-controversial arena for cooperation. Even more importantly, by combining the resources and complementing strengths of China and the EU and the US, all three could send a powerful message that they are prepared to protect the world's ancient civilizations from wanton destruction and illegal profiteering, and that others should join them in this fight. We hope that by highlighting the need for such a role for museums across the world to play, these three entities will accept that challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John, for this reminding. We have to fight against this robbery and to protect our heritage. That's the goal of museums. And of course, new technology can help us to track the goods and to protect them. So thank you very much for developing this idea. I would like now to, it's my great pleasure to introduce Sarah Canadine, because she's a professor of digital museology at the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, and maybe one of the most advanced researcher and about interactive and immersive experience for galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. You did widely exhibition with installation works where you amalgamated, when you put together cultural heritage with new media, art, and practice, especially in the realms of interactive cinema, augmented reality, and embodied narrative. You are considered as a pioneer in the field of digital heritage, digital museology, digital humanities, and data visualization, and regular keynote speaker at related forum internationally. You produce more than 80 exhibitions and installations for museums worldwide, including a museum complex in India, and you received a number of major international awards for this work. In 2017, you were appointed Professor of Digital Museology. That's a chair very rare in Europe at the École Polytechnique Fédérale in Lausanne, the EPFL in Switzerland, where you have built a new laboratory for experimental museology, the EM+, exploring the convergence of aesthetic practice, visual analytics, and cultural data. You are also the director and the lead curator of EPFL New Art Science Initiative, inaugurated in 2017 as Art Lab. So I think you are the most accurate today speaker about what we can do with new technology as a creative tool. So thank you very much for your intervention, Sarah. It's your, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Sylvain, and also thank you to David and to Arena for including me in this event. So the theme I will explore is central in the digital revolution, and it's a work that's been emerging out of my laboratories for many years now at the transdisciplinary intersection of imaging technologies, immersive visualization, visual analytics, digital aesthetics, and cultural big data. Yes. It was the CEO of Intel, former CEO Brian Krasnick, who declared in 2014, we're in the midst of a transformation from a world of screens and devices to a world of immersive experiences. And a quick introduction to media art history informs us that what he was really observing was hundreds of years of development in these prosthetic architectures of the senses. From the Kaiser panorama to the sensorama, the emergence of immersive environments has coincided with the sublimation of curatorial praxis inside machines and represented the greatest challenge to the passive viewer since the invention of the roller coaster. For 20 years, I've been designing and building these large-scale interactive frameworks for cultural heritage. This was initially located at Museum Victoria in Melbourne, where I started to build large-scale systems. I then started to work with universities to help sustain this kind of infrastructure across the museum sector. I co-established the Applied Laboratory for Interactive Visualization and Embodiment at the Hong Kong Science Park in Hong Kong with City University and Professor Geoffrey Shaw. I returned to Australia to build the Expanded Perception and Interaction Centre. And just to give you an idea of what you're looking at here on the right-hand side, it's a small panorama, but it's comprised of 56 projectors and a 29 computer cluster. And it's at the edge of human visual acuity, and it was designed to solve visualization problems for complexity and big data in the humanities and the sciences. And now at EPFL, a large warehouse on the lake, 12 large-scale systems that we've built, offering strategies for multi-sensory engagement, emphasizing human-to-human as well as human-to-machine interaction, and giving us powerful ways to reformulate narrative in a digital context. These machines, we could say, are prosthetic architectures for the senses. Since then, my research has continued to harness technologies that have unprecedented abilities to capture the world around us. Laser scanning, for example, collects billions of points to represent places such as these heads at Mount Rushmore scanned by the Scottish 10. We can peer inside precious objects in 3D and see what was previously unseen. We can capture art in a way that allows us to zoom into the tiniest brushstroke and reveal more than the naked eye can see. Machine learning and artificial intelligence are also at the center of this new revolution. Here, the photogrammetric model of Nefertari's tomb, which is on 2 levels, and 7 annex rooms. It was collected in only 8 hours of photogrammetry, and machine learning is used to create a model of billions of points, which we then stream across an 11 PC cluster to a 1-to-1 scale experience of what it's like to be there. We subject cultural treasures to X-ray fluorescence in an effort to reveal their chemical materiality. Here, the mercury map of the Henry VIII and the lead in this painting. It's in the collection of the Art Gallery of New South Wales. And an interest of mine, an ongoing interest, is working with intangible cultural heritage, perhaps the most problematic for the museum, through various forms of motion capture and motion over time analytics. And here we're looking at South Chinese Kung Fu masters in a longitudinal project running in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Martial Arts Living Archive. As mentioned, I'm also the director of the former Art Lab, now EPFL Pavilions, and this is a new space for the amplification of science and society, and it blends experimental curatorship and contemporary aesthetics with open science, digital humanism, and emerging technologies. In 2021, in September this year, we will launch Deep Fake Art in its double, exploring how digitally recorded copies can be both a load of forensically accurate information, but also vehicles for evoking deep emotional response. Deepfakes are technologically empowered objects of art and science that offer forensic insights normally hidden from view. These objects stimulate alternative cultural forces that are prompting a renegotiation of our understanding of replicas, reenactment, and materiality itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sarah. It's fascinating what you have done, and I would like to invite you maybe in Rouen to do something together because it looks fascinating, I have to say. And Lausanne is a wonderful place. You are very, very. Thank you very much. And now we can conclude maybe with somebody who is coming from far away. Yan Chi, you were born in 1986 in Urumqi, Xinjiang, and you currently live you live and work in Beijing. You are the deputy director of the Three Shadows Photography Art Center, and you studied at the Beijing Institute of Fashion Technology and the Institut d'Études Supérieures in France, le IESA in Paris. You received a master's degree in fine arts and a master's degree in contemporary art management. So you participated in the curation and execution of projects, including the Three Shadow Photography Award exhibition in 2018, 2020, and Three Shadows Photo Fair in 2019. The Power of Image in Datong in China, International Photography Culture Exhibition, and others. You are the project coordinator of the 2020 Himei and Arles International Photo Festival, so you are deeply involved in the exchange between France and China on the field of photography. And you curated the solo exhibition soon to be gone by the Lithuanian photographer Tadas Kazakevicius in the crossover section of the festival. So maybe to conclude, you could, Yan Chi, say us how you see the cooperation between Occident and China with new technology on the field of photography, art photography from today. So it's your turn. I give you the floor, Yan Chi. Thank you very much. You are here.
你可以讲，严女士，你可以讲。
非常感谢主持人的介绍，也非常感谢高先生的邀请。那么我也很荣幸跟各位连线。那么现在我的网络 OK 吗？大家？
非常 OK。
谢谢。那么其实就正如大家所说，在疫情爆发后的1年，全世界各个地方的文化活动和文化机构其实都仍然在努力的抵抗着疫情带来的余震这样的一个影响。那么这次论坛中与各位的讨论和分享，我觉得是非常的重要，也非常的急迫的一件事情。那么我就用最简短的语言介绍一下我们的美术馆三影堂摄影艺术中心。 那三影堂是在中国的北京和厦门2个城市，也是中国第一家专注于当代摄影摄影艺术的这么一个机构。当然，和很多美术馆一样，我们是集研究、出版、教育、娱乐、论坛为一体的这样的一个文化综合体。那么，除了展出海内外的艺术家的个展群展之外，当然我们也做了支持年轻艺术家的这样的摄影奖，举办了和法国阿尔勒摄影节做的这个集美阿尔勒国际摄影季。感谢您的介绍。那么相对于像荣军院或者是诸位文化机构，其实三影堂是非常年轻，我们现在只有14年的历史，所以很感谢这次和大家各位学习的机会。那么今天论坛的主题网络时代的博物馆的重构，我非常非常赞同重构这个词，因为我们期待的它不仅仅是传统的实体的美术馆的这样的一个延伸，一样扩展，而是一种不管是在技术层面还是在制度层面双重意义上的这样的一个重生。那么相比传统的实体美术馆，它比较偏重的是资料库的性质。那么网络的美术馆其实不仅仅被满足于提供资料讯息，然后我们还要有非常好的知识管理，非常有创造性的实践，然后参与和进入到当下的社会和文化，来创作出新形式的这样的互动和沟通。那么三影堂目前其实我们做的是通过网站，还有多种社交网络、社交平台，初步实现了这样的一个数据化教育课程的远程教学、多媒体的展示、图书出版物以及艺术商店商品的一种在线的销售。但是我相信西方的美术馆已经有很丰富的这样的收藏和经验，所以他们其实比我们更早一步的完成了这一部分的工作。但是说到数据化的艺术数据库，其实我也很想跟各位分享一个我们目前还没有解决的一个课题，也就是说犹如我们的刚刚几位讲者所说，他们已经推出了线上的美术馆，那么观众打开网站可以看到非常高清的艺术作品图片，那隔着屏幕也能看到这种艺术品的这种质地和纹路。那么这种方式我完全同意，对于观看古代艺术和现代艺术都是非常绝佳的方式。但是呢，对于三影堂以及像我们一样专注于当代摄影技术的这个美术馆来说，其实呢，数字化的美术馆也给我们带来一个非常急需解决的一个难题、一个课题吧，就是说摄影版权的保护。怎么说呢？比方说，相比油画，我们除非有特殊的扫描仪扫描出这个油画的质感，才能够1:1的复制出一个完美的赝品。但是摄影同样是一个现代化的产物。那么如果从网上，我举个例子，下载下来一个找到高清图片，我下载出来一个安德烈古斯基，那么其实我打印出来放在家里的客厅，是不是也不是难事呢？其实这个是我们当然了，这个是需要一定的时间，因为我知道现在的技术已经可以达到这样的版权保护，但是对于艺术家取得他们的信任和授权，我相信这都是需要一定的时间和过程的。那么疫情期间，三影堂在不能向观众开放的时候，我们的工作重心其实就转移向了在线的公共教育，比方说通过一些自媒体平台分享我们的展览、艺术家采访、翻书视频。那我们也曾经用一种刚才我们看到的这种 VR 的技术，让观众在线看我们不能就是关闭的展览。但是其实我们坦白讲，我们也有一定的惯性，不管是我们自身还是我们的观众，尤其是展览和作品，在互联网的这个领域下，它其实被压缩成了一种2维的图像。那么相比起来，美术馆这种实体的空间，展览给我们观众带来的更多的是感受和互动性。那么这个如何来承接这一部分的责任？那么对于三影堂来说，对我们来讲，其实仍然是一个挑战和值得思考的一个问题。 当然了，网络技术给我们带来的也有无法想象的新的创造，比方说，最近大家可能经常看到的就是 NFT 非同质化代币。那么我们都从拍卖市场上领略到了它的非凡的魅力。当然，我相信如果将来这种艺术货币能够进入到美术馆的收藏，那就会是一个新的一个飞跃了。所以我们特别的期待能够与各位继续的交流，也期望我们能够在疫情之后克服这个难题，走向另外一个飞跃。谢谢大家。
Thank you very much, Yanqi. It's very fascinating to hear about also use a new technology to protect the copyright, and you are completely right. We have to face that, and maybe the blockchain and the NFT will help us to protect the right of the artists, because they need to live, they need to earn money from their creation. So that's the end of this first session. David, I think it was, as you said, very diverse and very rich. We have seen how new technology can help us to protect heritage, protect copyright and artists, to make new artists emerging, also to engage new experiences with visitors, and to help visitors to participate to the work of art, and also to the knowledge and to the life of a museum, how new technology can connect museum with universities, with also partners from wide abroad. So I think we see how we need the support of the strong tools which have been developed, like the Baidu Group and others, to support the development of the relationship between the West and the East, and the museums and the public. So I think it's a very wide field that we will be in the future very, very deeply invest. So thank you very much for this opportunity to join together all those speakers. And David, I give you the floor back.
Look, Sylvain, thank you very much. And as you said, a fascinating panel, so many things to comment. And I was very happy when Sarah Kenderdine used the word complexity. We can feel the complexity, and hopefully because of this complexity, something very valuable is going to emerge. The process of complexity and emergence are two fascinating processes. And thank you so much, Sylvain, for your
my pleasure
moderating this panel. You are wonderful. And Sylvain, clearly, I know you are going to invite Sarah Kenderdine to work with you, but I know also that many friends in China, they want to work with Professor Kenderdine. So, but it's good. It's good. It's good. This is exchanges. And also, what was very interesting, Sylvain, is when Yanqi mentioned these non-fungible tokens, NFT. And look, if someone wants to buy this digital moment, I promise we will share with all the speakers. We will share with all the speakers. But Sylvain, now I am asked to do a break, 2 minutes, and then we give the floor to Professor Louis Godard, and we keep you informed on NFT. And in 2 minutes, Professor Louis Godard, you have the floor. 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Much.
Thank you very much. I would like to express my deep gratitude to my friend David Gosset for this invitation to this splendid conference. During this second session, we will speak about museums and international cooperation. I do believe that to demonstrate how the cooperation between the museums of the world is of fundamental importance, we need to quote the words of the great French historian Fernand Braudel. He said, "Every artistic form in Europe goes beyond the limits of its original homeland." And I think that we could say today, in the beginning of the third decade of the third millennium, every artistic form in the world goes beyond the limits of each continent. Only a close cooperation between the various museums of the world is able to give to the citizens of our planet the possibility to go beyond the limits of each continent and to give to each of us the feeling of a belonging to the great human family. Let me take just one example. In 2007, to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Treaties of Rome, I organized in the Palace of Quirinale a great exhibition. President Napolitano and myself invited each of the heads of the 26 states that, together with Italy, were then part of the European Union, to lend a masterpiece of art that was emblematic of the history of his or her country. All of them responded enthusiastically to this proposal, selecting works from their principal museum. So masterpieces from prehistory, classical civilization, Middle Age and Byzantine era, Renaissance and the Republic of Letters, 19th and 20th century were collected and exhibited in the Salone dei Corazzieri of the palace. At the end of this journey, through 28 masterpieces and the many cultures that produced them in around 5,000 years of history, Europe appeared as the privileged space that was able to assimilate civilizing force from other continents, as well as one space where man became the arbiter of the universe and the concept of democracy and tolerance were born. The implementations of these values helps the citizens of the whole continent to feel that they are sons of a set of traditions, ideals, and aspirations that are often interwoven and in the same time in tension with each other. And this achievement was possible thanks to the collaboration between all the museums involved in the exhibition. Another point was underlined by Mrs. McEntee, the necessity of a collaboration between the museum to cut the traffic of illegal antiquities as masterpieces. So I have the honor to give the floor to Mr. Gerardo Bugallo, Cultural Counselor of the Spanish Embassy in China. Please, Mr. Bugallo, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I have been hearing to all this that has been said, extremely interesting. But I would like to mention something that I think is quintessential to everything we are talking about. That is the extreme danger of trivialization. More than a danger is a reality, it's a tragedy. To trivialize the idea of a masterpiece. You all remember how a journalist asked many years ago Dalí, what is the difference between a Velázquez and the picture of a Velázquez? And Dali answered, jokingly, obviously, $100 million. Well, we are running the risk of forgetting that there are other differences than the price. And when we see the multiplication of the images of masterpieces all around the world, and you juxtapose Velázquez with the Kardashians, we are in a very serious risk of, as I said, trivializing which is the most excellent in human history. I think museum is, as David Roth says, is a collection of stories of our history. But more than that, is an exhibition of excellence. So I would like to vindicate, and I think this is something that could be a main task for an initiative like this, a global initiative that encompasses continents and museums all over the world practically. I think the international cooperation should be focused on something that is absolutely quintessential to art. That is the idea of masterpiece, capolavoro, chef d'oeuvre, obra maestra. The idea of mastery is absolutely essential. Because otherwise, as I said, we trivialize and we end up not knowing exactly what is the difference between, as I said, a Velázquez and a reproduction of a Velázquez, a copy. And the question is that the masterpiece is, as opposed to the picture, it needs a genius. It needs a human being at in its most productive moment, create something that is there forever. That is a story of our history. But as I said, we need to go back to this idea of excellence, because if we don't compensate the juxtaposition of the multiplication of images with an idea of autoritas, we are losing the essence of what we are trying to achieve. And it's not by coincidence I said that just a couple of weeks ago has been republished in China this book that is The Revolt of the Masses. It has been translated into Chinese just two weeks ago. And I want to bring it here because probably you have read the book, but if you reread it now, you will be flabbergasted. But how a book that has been originally published almost 100 years ago is absolutely up to date. You will be try it and you will see, you will be surprised to what an extent the idea that a man that doesn't need to be better than he is, that he can claim the right to be part of the mass. And then, as I said, the Kardashians are the same as it's just another image, is absolutely essential to keep alive the whole idea of a museum. And one thing is what Sarah Kenderdine show us, that is the excellent opportunities that new technologies gave us to see better, to discover more deeply what is really art, what is behind these masterpieces. And a completely different thing is just to multiply the possibilities of people watching these images and try to cajole people at, look at me, I'm here. I'm also interesting as the Kardashians are, just not to change the example. I think in order to achieve something, there is this saying in Spanish, I suppose it's basically the same in any language, that there is no good wind for the sailboat that doesn't know where it wants to go. I think our sails should be full of the wind that drives through autoritas, through the idea of capolavoro, of masterpiece, the idea of excellence, to try to elicit in the general public the idea of excellence. And I'm not talking about the canon here. Let me be clear about this, because canon is something that is exclusive, try to exclude other things. I'm not trying to impose. I think the role of the museum is to expose, but to expose, again, with a sense of autoritas. This is what you, the public, should understand as the very best. And this is how you transform highbrow into lowbrow culture. And popular culture drives the world. If you sort of diminish the values of popular culture, you diminish the quality of life. This has happened in cinema, and I won't get started with that because it's my favorite subject, but I will leave it aside for the moment. But if you try to bring to the general public excellence and remind them, this is excellent, don't forget it. Then we are making a much better world for the people and for the museums, by the way. But if you just try to run behind the people with your images, look at this, look at that, we are risking, again, a serious danger of trivialization. So this is what I wanted to bring to this meeting. Also, the recommendation of rereading Ortega, especially this book, The Revolt of the Masses, because you will enjoy it enormously. And again, thank you very much for having me with you, and thank you very much for these very interesting remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bugallo. Let me say that your intervention was a capolavoro. So now I have the pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Wallace Chen, jewelry artist and sculptor in the long tradition of the Chinese sculptors. Mr. Chen, you have the floor. There is a problem?
詹先生，你要我们放您的视频，麻烦詹先生。
放我的视频好吗？
好，放那个视频。好的。
好。
Okay. You have the floor.
Nous a.
感谢大会的邀请，让我有机会在这里与国际上的贤达分享一下我作为一个艺术创作者对于国际化的经验和感受。艺术创作的其中一个本质就是界限的推展和领域的跨越吧。我从1973年开始做宝石雕刻，那是我创作生涯的开始。我从中国传统题材雕刻开始，比方说是翡翠、青金石和珊瑚等等，观音的像和佛像、仙女神秀。我在80年代走进了一家书店，发现了米塞兰基罗，发现了雕刻的另外一个世界，那些肌肉的线条、光影、明暗、戏剧的张力，给我的思想带来了前所未有的冲击。由于我负担不起去国外深造，于是我走进香港西洋粉厂去临摹圣人和天使的雕像，开始通过全透光的水晶雕刻西方神话、童话、洋雕、鹰雕。到了1987年，受到了一个摄影展中双重曝光的启发，我发明了石英的切割，一个以希腊神话中荷兰女神为题材的幻象雕刻法。我的创作态度是，无论东方西方，无论是来自何方，只有有意创作的都会去拥抱。我想象思想的刺激，远古和未来的碰撞，不同文化之间的冲击，都是创意的养分。举个例子说，10多年前我做过一件作品，灵感之一是来自中国战国时期的兽面图，凤凰的图腾。同一时间，这件作品也受到了梵谷、星夜的启发。有一段时间，我的作品拿给西方人看，西方人说是东方的；拿给东方人看，东方人说是西方的。每个人都需要某种程度身份的认同吧，而我也曾经因为找不到自己身份的定位而觉得迷失不知所造。但是我慢慢觉得，我创作的目标就是让作品超越所有文化、国度和时代的局限，成为世界大同的载体，宇宙共通的语言。所以国际化对我来说是非常重要的。在1992年，我在德国的宝石镇伊达欧布斯塔的博物馆举行了一个个人的展览。我是第一位去到哪里举行个展的中国人，随后又到了巴塞尔、莫斯科、纽约等等。到了2012年，我成为第一位在法国巴黎古董双年展展出的华人珠宝艺术家。之后的几年，我以同样的身份去了英国伦敦的 Masterpiece 荷兰马城的那个 TIFAF 等等。我刚刚在威尼斯为我的一个大型的个展开幕，我不断的向外跑，一直的坚持到世界各地做展览。原因很简单，就是想要知道要创造出来的作品是不是能够得到更大的共鸣。我一直有一个想法，也不知道是否正确，今天在这里分享，请大家指正。我觉得基因是要交换的，交换基因能够让我们越变越强。为什么混血儿特别的聪明？为什么近亲不能结婚？基因学告诉我们，血缘关系越远，越能取得互补的优势。我觉得这样的概念能够借用到艺术创作上。知识需要不断的转移，基因需要不停的交换，世界万物才能够得以延续。基因的交换是一种求生的本能，是人类进化的基础的法则。今天我们谈到国际化，国际化是艺术创意的求生术。艺术创作的本质就是要破我的执着，打破自身的局限，深入未知的世界去探索未见的可能。国际化是要离开艺术创作的舒适圈，用最纯粹的色彩、形态、质感建构一个全新的世界，邀请观众通过作品去超越自身的情景。我们可以走进艺术里面去做科学，走进鸟的世界去做鱼，走进风的世界去做蝴蝶，走进东方的世界去了解西方，走进西方的世界去寻找东方。无论是深入一点的基因的交换，还是广义一点的跨知识、跨文化、跨领域的创作，都是创作精神最佳的体现。国际化是必须的，因为只有跳出自己的世界，才能拥有更大的世界。谢谢大家。
Thank you very much to you indeed, Mr. Chen. Thank you to this splendid speech. You explained that culture is without boundaries, and your inspirations is an inspiration which goes to the far west, and that far west and far east grow together from the cultural point of view, from the human point of view. Thank you very much indeed. We are very grateful to you for this splendid intervention. Now I have the pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Bernard de Witt, Chairman of the Belgian-Chinese Chamber of Commerce. Mr. de Witt, you have the floor once again.
I thank you very much, Mr. Godard. Thank you for your introduction also to this part of the seminar. I'm not an artist like Mr. Chen. I'm not a museum curator like some of our previous speakers, but as a lawyer, I have a keen interest in art, and with our Chamber of Commerce, we are regularly involved in the participation of the setting up of some exhibitions, either by Chinese artists here in Belgium and Europe, either in China. I would say that our chamber has been created in the 80s after China's opening up, and our aim is to advance economic, cultural, scientific, academic exchanges between China and Belgium and Europe. And we do this by organizing seminars on various topics, as also many networking activities. We also were hit by the COVID, so that many of our present activities are through Zoom or video conferences like today. I would say that when I read the paper of the UNESCO, and the speech today of Madame Bokova was also stressing on that, I read that the increased mobility of collections, of professionals, of visitors has increased the soft power of museums in the area of cultural diplomacy, leading to a greater accessibility and increased understanding and appreciation of various cultures. We have to see that soft power, especially when used by countries, has been criticized. And personally, I do not agree with that. It is important to give access to culture of a country, of a region, of a city, to people from another cultural background. Museums play a key role in helping to understand each other better. It has also an economic role by attracting tourists, by revitalizing city centers, by bringing new art galleries, by allowing artists to develop their art, to live from their art. And when I look at China, I must say that I'm impressed by the number of museums that have been created all over the country, and not only in Beijing or Shanghai, all over the country these last 10 years, and by the fact that this was done not only at the initiative of the governments, being local, provincial, national, but also at the initiative of private enterprises or citizens wanting to share their passion for art with the public. And I think, for instance, to the Long Museum in Shanghai or the Tank Museum in Shanghai. And we have that also in Europe and in the US, and the very recent opening of a new museum at La Bourse du Commerce in Paris is a good example of that. We need to keep bridges, we need to keep dialogue, we need to push for a better understanding between China and the Western countries, and museums are really the best tools for that. When I listened to the first part of our seminar, I was also struck by the speech of Mr. Messerschmidt, and I must say personally that nothing will replace the physical experience attending an event in a museum, like going to the cinema, the theaters. That is unique. And I remember, for instance, personally having attended a tea ceremony at the Prince Kun's Palace in Beijing, leaving me such a beautiful feeling. But we have now also the digital aspects, and digital museums are also growing, or the digital departments of the museum, offering a unique opportunity of dissemination of culture. And I could compare that a little bit with the digital platforms like Netflix, for instance, allowing many people to see new films, but a film in a movie theater once in a while is also something very important. I will finish by telling you that I was interested in the speech of my predecessor, the cultural counselor of the Spanish embassy, Mr. Bugallo, who was insisting on the danger of trivializing. And I would say that if I go to the Louvre in Paris, if I go to see the Joconde, and in particular now when there is a little bit less people in it, it is, of course, a physical experience I will never have with Kim Kardashian. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much to you, Mr. DeWitt. Thank you very much for insisting once more on the necessity for Western countries to collaborate and to understand Chinese culture. And I must remember that from very long time, from the 3rd millennium BC, as Le Roi Gourand explained, there were relations between Far East and Far West. And so you are perfectly right when you insist on this point. Thank you very much. And now I have the pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Pavlos Kondomikalos, who is founder and CEO of Hellas Group. It's for me a great pleasure to introduce a Greek citizen, because I spent many years of my life in Greece working and making excavations in Crete. So είναι για μένα μια μεγάλη χαρά να δίνω το λόγο στο κύριο Κοντομικάλο.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Godard. I did not expect this introduction in Greek, in masterful Greek, I must say. Thank you. And thank you, David, for this is an absolutely amazing initiative, and I'm humbled to be here. I'm certainly not an artist. I'm not a museum curator. I'm a Greek I was born in Athens, Greece. I spent my early years there. Then I was in United States and Canada. And about a quarter of a century ago, since we are talking about museums, and I came to China. And since then, I have had several passions, but recently I created a business around Greece, and that is why it's called Hellas Group. And this business is, I consider myself a different type of business person, because profit is always important, but for me, there are three other P's that are even more important. One is purpose, doing something that has a clear purpose for me and for my country. The second is pioneer, and I heard this a lot from the amazing speakers before. Pioneering, doing things that no one has done before, is very, very gratifying. And third is doing all that with a passion, because that's what gets people to listen and follow. So I'm quite proud of having formed the Hellas Group today. 12 companies, all focused at sharing passionately the unique treasures of Greece with the world. And by doing that, elevating ourselves, making us better, and leading our body, our mind, and leading us to a healthier and happier life. And today, specifically, I will talk about Hellas House, or Hellas House. Hellas House doesn't fit in any mold. It is certainly not a museum, but it's a dream come true project. It's a labor of love, which took more than 6 years to renovate a 1930s villa or mansion in the center of Shanghai with a big garden right in the heart of Shanghai, and make it what today is quite a landmark. But what is Hellas House? By the way, inspired by the previous session of high technology and cyber, I have a very high-tech presentation. So this is Hellas House, if you can see it. This is so it's right in the center of Shanghai. This is Hellas House, another picture of Hellas House. You can see this is the Cycladic section of Hellas House. We are very proud to cooperate with the premier museum in Athens, the Cycladic Museum, and bring to Shanghai their masterpieces. But Hellas House has another aspect. This is also Hellas House, which is combining elements of a museum, combining elements of a private clubhouse, and combining elements of the home of a friend. So this is what the Hellas House has. And when I was thinking, when David invited me, and I was thinking how to, among all these giant museums, to present the Hellas House, the best thing I came up with was Hellas House is a living museum. It's a museum that combines the culture and the history, but also with today's lifestyle in a way that I feel is quite unique. So it brings both the wonders of ancient Greece, the art, the heritage, the mythology, and all of that, but also the best of modern Greece, which is things like Greek natural products that are unique and Chinese as it develops. Traveling to Greece with a purpose, not just to see, but to experience and to learn and to get some cultural connection and interaction, but also business opportunities. So that's what Hellas House tries to do. Aesthetically, it is, I'm very proud, it is a masterpiece in my view, because we have imported marbles from the island of Thasos, Greek marble columns, antiquities, exhibits, authentic Cycladic statues, and so on. I could go on for hours. And that was not an easy task. Anyone who lives in China importing things like that. At the same time, we have thematically organized. We have the Minoan space, the Aegean, the Sophia room, the Eros lounge, the Eros garden, the Eleon kitchen, which is showcases the food, open kitchen, history hall, and so on and so forth. So it's quite unique. And again, ancient Greek culture with modern lifestyle and Mediterranean diet and Mediterranean beauties. So I think it creates quite an unforgettable experience. Some of you have been there. So it's a Greek culture and lifestyle center that I based also on the values of Hippocrates, or Hippocrates, who, as you all know, is the father of medicine. But he believed in a few things. He believed that in order to be healthy, happy, and to live a fulfilled life, you need to basically influence positively the mind, the body, the environment around you, and the nutrition. And that's what a last house is based. And one area that is so integral to Greece, and I'm pleased because I heard before, the East and West. This is something, you know, the cradle of civilization of the East and of the West, exchanging and connecting. This is what we try to do with the last house and the rest of the world. And the Greek word that Mr. Godard, you know, philoxenia. Philoxenia is a word that is not easy to translate, but what it means is hospitality and taking care of people that you may not know as if they are your friends. And this is something that is ancient Greek, but also I believe carries to today. And we try to showcase a little bit of that at the last house. So the last house in effect is Greece's hand in China, warmly extended in friendship, not only ideas, but opportunities for people to meet, improve, and elevate themselves. So that's what I wanted to show. And one learning I have is it's very powerful when you combine history, culture with more humanity, connectivity, lifestyle, because people can absorb and learn things without feeling that things are pushed to them or they have to go through a lecture and so on. And that's very powerful. So in closing, because David, you know me, I could speak for a long time, but we don't have the time. So in closing.
One day we will meet all together at Ella's house, so everyone can enjoy, experience what you are talking about. Very important to experience.
Thank you, David. You took my closing, but thank you. That's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to offer everyone a warm welcome, the amazing artists, the museum curators, the people that have influenced archaeology that you have in this group. If you come to Shanghai, when you come to Shanghai, please come to see us. It's a living museum, as I said, and the experience is something that I think will stay ingrained in your heart. So thank you all very much for the time and attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you, Mr. Kondomikalos. I would like, after your speech, to say that for me, as you explained, Ella's house is the house where we find beauty and passion for history. Yafto σας ευχαριστώ θερμότατα. Γεια σας.
Ευχαριστώ.
Now I have the pleasure to give the floor to my friend, Director Giulierini, Director of the National Archaeological Museum of Naples, one of the most important museums in the world.
Thank you, Professor Godard. Thank you. The National Archaeological Museum of Naples is one of the most ancient and important museums for the abundance and the richness of its heritage. and for the contribution it offered the European Cultural Survey. The origin and the constitution of its collection are connected with Charles III, Bourbon dynasty, on the throne of the Kingdom of Naples since 1734, and his cultural policy. The king promoted the exploration of the Vesuvian town, buried by the eruption of 79 AD, Herculaneum and Pompeii, and looked after the carrying out of a Museo Farnesiano in the town, transferring from the palaces of Rome and Parma part of the rich collection inherited from his mother Elisabetta Farnese. Today, the Archaeological Museum of Naples has also expanded its role in the enhancement of the Italian cultural and artistic heritage. Man is, in fact, the main lender of the Ministry for Culture abroad, also an operational army. It has a direct relation with the European museums, such as the Louvre and the British Museum, the Hermitage of St. Petersburg, with which there is a permanent protocol of activity. The great American museums, such as the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York or the Getty in Los Angeles. The museum has also had important relation with China for many years, since the time of the Eagle and Dragon exhibition. Man was recently included in the group of operational subjects for culture within the Silk Road, established by the Italian and Chinese government. Among the many recent exhibitions held in China, we remember Pompeii, The Infinite Life, with the location in Chengdu, Xi'an, Wuhan. After the period of the pandemic, which saw a natural contraction of activity, the man has resumed his exhibition. We are currently present in Orlando with the Pompeii exhibition, The Immortal City, soon in Oklahoma City with the Pompeii Pictures exhibition. The next year, a big exhibition is ready for Tokyo, Kyoto, Fukuoka. Man's ability to carry out exhibition all over the world is due to his huge deposit located in the attics, full of extraordinary finds from Pompeii and Herculaneum, which add up to over 200,000 objects of great and scientific value. This warehouse is called Sing Sing because it is characterized by long corridors overlooked by the room with iron doors reminiscent of those of the cell of the famous American maximum security prison. At the museum entrance to display the man worldwide reach, a giant poster depicts the 5 continents with the marker showing where the man's exhibition are being held in cities around the world. Man, together with the exhibition, always present at the museum and the territory of the Campania region, in the belief that this initiative have not only a scientific purpose, but also a tourist and a diplomatic impact. In particular, precious merchandising products are being prepared, inspired by the artifacts on display, but which also use the tradition of Campania design and artistic craftsmanship, coral, gold, cameos, silk, ceramic. Of course, as a museum of international significance, we also host many exhibitions to compare Asian Eastern culture with Western one. We have hosted exhibition of Chinese archaeology, Mesoamerican archaeology. This exchange process also affected contemporary art. The man hosted the well-known skyladder Tsai Yang, who exhibit his evocative painting and statues inspired by Pompeii and the museum. Man believed that even the ancient world must always be represented globally, so that is understood that diversity is richest and that the knowledge of each other's culture help peaceful coexistence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear friend, for your speech. I would like to insist on one point, as you said. If we want to understand the classical roads of Europe, we must visit the Museum of Naples. And Paolo Giulierini is the best director and the best interpreter of this museum. So thank you very much. For me, it was a great honor to moderate the second session, and the floor is to Professor Gosset.
Thank you very much, Professor, and thank you to Mr. Bugallo for these very stimulating remarks. We keep in mind, Mr. Bugallo, this imperative of excellence. And as Professor Godard said, your speech in itself was a masterpiece. I think we will remember it, and you sent a very powerful signal. So thank you very much. Thank you also to Mr. Wallace Chan, and sir, you are a very important artist, very important artist. Your speech was brilliant, but I invite all the colleagues and friends present today to look at what you are doing. And to rebound on what Mr. Bugallo said, you have created masterpieces. You have created masterpieces. We will give the floor to Bernard for the conclusion, but always full of gratitude for what you are doing, Bernard. Pavlos, very clear, your experience in Shanghai is very powerful. And frankly speaking, Pavlos, what I would like to see is not Hellas house in Shanghai, but a Chinese house in Paris, Rome, Athens, and I know it will come. I know it will come, but what you're doing is also very profound, because I hope it does inspire our Chinese friends to project their beauties, their aesthetics into the West. And of course, dear Mr. Giulierini, Professor Godard said it, we know the importance of your museum, and it is because here we are obsessed. We are very much interested by the classics that we wanted to have you today and to end with you, because we can discuss a lot about technology, a lot about platforms, but we need content. So I understand that today's conversation was a way to try to find the right balance between the content and the technological platforms. It's about the balance, but we cannot forget the classics. Now, look, I will introduce the speakers for the conclusion. I spoke too much already, but there is one thing, maybe, dear friends and colleagues, that we can think about is also the suggestion of Madame Joanne McEntee about having a conference to fight trafficking. And the Board of Antiquities is a very powerful organization in the US. And I think to have this in China and supported by the Chinese friends would be very significant. So maybe we can think about that. I know, Professor Godard, that you have been doing so much in your country, in Italy, with the Carabinieri to fight against this terrible trafficking. This is a problem. One needs to tackle it. Now, I think I have said what I wanted to say, but I am very, very happy because harmony is very important. The second panel was very much male-dominated panel. It's not very good for harmony. So in the conclusion, we will give the floor to Madame Ma Pétier in Beijing, and of course, Ms. Vivienne Tia will have the floor to conclude. So Madame Ma, editor-in-chief of the Beijing News Book Review Weekly, I want to tell our friends here that, in my opinion, the Beijing News Book Review is simply, I don't like to use the equivalent of the New York Review of Books, but this is of the same caliber and quality. So before I give the floor to you, Madame Ma, thank you very much for all the work you are doing, taking good care of the content. Madame Ma, the floor is yours.
各位前辈好，能听见我的声音？
非常好，很清楚。
好的。各位前辈好，很荣幸能代表《新京报书评周刊》参加这场国际博物馆盛会。那我是《新京报书评周刊》的主编马培杰。刚刚听了各位前辈的发言，其实我深受启发。那么其实博物馆和这个文化媒体之间是有诸多的相同之处的。那我们都面对公众，那么也都致力于知识的传播，消解无知，那么不偏不倚的记录时代的这个印记。那么博物馆呢，举办展览的消息总会第一时间的刊登在媒体上。那另一方面呢，许多媒体刊出的这个报刊也最终成为了这个博物馆珍藏的这个藏品。那么从某种意义上来说呢，现代意义上的媒体和博物馆甚至可以说有着共同的祖先。那我们都诞生于18世纪的启蒙时代，那么诞生于那个时代追求普遍知识的共同理想。那么博物馆在发展，媒体也在进步，新技术的冲击使博物馆和媒体的形态都发生了翻天覆地的变化。那么今天在论坛的第一部分，各位前辈都交流了博物馆现在正在面临的一个技术的变革。那么其实媒体也同样的，那么尤其是在当下呢，这个媒体和博物馆其实更需要这个携手共进，来互通有无，让人类千百年来累积的文明成果可以得到更好的传承。那么说到这个文明和知识的传承，那么18世纪中国名闻海味的这个学者袁枚，他曾经有一个藏书船的譬喻。那么书犹如船只，承载着文明，航行在时间的长河之上。那我们新京报书评周刊创刊于2003年，那么18年来，作为一家持续关注文化事业和图书出版的专业媒体，在这方面也有着自己的一些思考。那我们注意到，博物馆作为展示人类文明的空间，隔着玻璃柜展示藏品，的确能给人最直观的这个感受。但是如果人们想要更深的了解，在其中的更多细节，了解文物背后的一些故事，那么仅靠这个标牌上的寥寥数行的解说词是绝不足以满足人们这个越来越旺盛的求知欲的。因为博物馆首先是视觉的空间，而非阅读的空间，那么不可能让文字过度的占据这个文物的空间。但书籍不同，书可以融图文于一体，也可以用文字深入其中，娓娓道来。那么图书与博物馆的结合，可以说是一场这个金玉良缘，让博物馆不仅可以观看，也可以阅读。那么甚至在那些展示空间，因有限而无法陈列的这馆藏文物呢，可以通过这个读书呈现在世人面前。那从这一点上来说，我觉得博物馆图书可以说是博物馆空间在空间和时间上的延伸，那么这个延伸是无限的。那么对于图书出版行业来说，我们也观察到他们对人类文明这一宏大主题的需求始终是如饥似渴的。那么近年来，随着读者对于新知的这个渴求越来越强烈，博物馆内的这个丰富背后的这个藏品背后的这个故事，也正是当下读者最关心的内容。一幅画作、一个瓶子、一件衣服，甚至一缕头发，都可以成为一本书的主题。那么2014年，大英博物馆世界简史一书在中国翻译出版。这本书以大英博物馆特展大英博物馆100件文物中的世界史为主题，对100件馆藏文物进行了细致入微的讲解，勾勒出了一整部这个人类全史。那么这本书迅速成为当年炙手可热的畅销书之一。那么3年后，这一特展巡回展来到了中国，那么在国家博物馆开展。 盛况空前。那许多参观者呢都手捧着这一本书作为参观指南，那么当时也是形成了很大的这个舆论影响。那么今年这个由英国学者魏红撰写的《实践古物中的丝路文明史》，那么也是刚刚出版。那么这本书呢，是通过实践古物在时空中的这个跌宕起伏的经历，讲述了丝绸之路的千年史，同样广受好评，目前也正在热销当中。那么其实作为媒体呢，我们看到了图书与博物馆连接的无限潜能，也希望我们能通过自身的优势来激发这种潜能。那么书评周刊其实现在在全平台拥有粉丝大概这个600多万，那么加持新京报大概在全网的4亿多万粉丝。我们也希望通过我们的传统纸刊，包括短视频，包括音频播客，包括文化活动的各个形式，然后来讲好咱们这个各个博物馆背后的这个文化故事。那么也通过这些故事呢，在我们的活动中、我们的音频中、我们的视频的这个讲述中变得火起来。那我们也希望在这次做一个倡议，这个为了让人类文明的成果可以得到更多方式的呈现，让我们在我们这一代人的手中获得更深远、更广泛的流传。我们希望出版界和这个博物馆能够更加连为一体。那么书评周刊也上联着全国上百家出版公司，也希望咱们的博物馆在中国办的这个巡展我们也能够出一份力，然后把咱们这个讲好故事的同时，也促进在中国的这个出版。那么也让每一座博物馆能成为一本人人可以打开的人文经典，那让每一本书也成为一座人人都可以随身携带的博物馆。谢谢大家。
Thank you very much, Madam, and of course, the importance of books. And I would like also to inform you that we are in a process of discussing the publication of a book in the framework of this conversation around museums. I will keep you well informed, but that might happen right after the second dialogue because books do matter. Professor Louis Godard, I know that you have been with us from the very beginning, and that would be very precious for us to listen to your own, let's say, conclusions about this conversation, or temporary conclusion, knowing that the conversation will go on. And tell us where you would like the conversation to go in the future.
Thank you very much. I would like to underline some of the conclusion we could reach at the time of our conference. We had the privilege to hear important directors and representatives from several top cultural institutions and museums from all over the world. I do think we agree all on the necessity to develop the collaboration between our institutions for different motives. First of all, because culture is without boundaries and represents a fantastic instrument to promote the dialogue between the nations. The collaboration between museums all over the world contributes to create a spirit of peace in the name of beauty. Secondly, I think this collaboration must encourage the promotion of great international exhibitions in order to offer to the peoples of different countries to realize the richness of different civilizations. Third, my experience teaches that the loan of masterpieces is very fruitful for the museum in possess of such masterpieces. I take just one example. In 2007, Minister Rutelli, Minister of Culture of Italy, decided the loan of Leonardo da Vinci's Annunciation, exhibited at the famous Uffizi Gallery in Florence, the loan to the Tokyo's National Museum in Japan. This decision was the motif of a big controversy in Italy, resulting in protest outside the Uffizi Gallery. Anyway, the painting went to Tokyo, and more than 1 million of Japanese had the possibility to admire one of the most impressive masterpieces of the art of history. And do you know what happened? From 2008, 1 year later, the number of Japanese visitors to Florence and to the Uffizi Gallery increased constantly. Leonardo da Vinci's Annunciation has been the best promoter of Italian culture in Japan. And so the loan, I repeat, the loan of masterpiece is certainly something that which helps the museum to grow together. And last point, Mrs. Bokova and Mrs. McEntee insisted on the necessity of a strong collaboration between the museum to try to stop the illegal traffic of masterpieces. Thank you very much to all. Thank you for the opportunity to participate to this conference.
Thank you very much, Professor. We are all together in the spirit of peace in the name of beauty. I will remember that vividly. Bernard, I think it's very important that we listen also to you, to your non-conclusive conclusion, as always, but a kind of wrap-up for us to prepare the future.
Thank you very much, David. First of all, I would like to say that as co-organizer, I want to thank you personally for what you did, because you are the maître d'œuvre, you are the spirit of this meeting today. You and your team, you made it possible, and it's not always easy to have so many people from so different countries and backgrounds to speak together, to dialogue together. So thank you very much for you, David, and for your team of having made that possible. I would like to say also that it was a pleasure to be part of this event co-organized with the China, Europe, America Global Initiative, and I was very interested by the speech of Mr. Roth at that moment. I would say, as a Belgium is a crossroad of several cultures. We have been, during our history, we have been ruled by so many other countries, France, David, but also Spain, Austria, Holland. So we know what is the difference of culture, and we know also how rich it can be to get all these cultures. And that is only a little part of Europe, and compared with the scale of the world. What I heard today gives me confidence in humanity by looking at the mind openness of our speakers, acting all in their respective fields to promote culture, to promote dialogue, to promote respect, curiosity for others, for other civilization, for other people. For instance, one little example which struck me when Mrs. McEntee spoke, behind her you had a Klimt painting, Europe, and she's American, and you had tang dancers from China, of course. So that was really, with one speaker, you had the three reunited, if I may say so. I would say also that there is much work to do, I think. First of all, I will have to visit the web museums of all our speakers. I will have to look, as you invited us very clearly, I want to see the artworks of Mr. Chan. I want to see the photography museum of our previous speaker, Madame Yen Chi. I want to look at the publications of Madame Ma, the editor-in-chief of the Beijing New Book Review Weekly. I was also very much impressed by the two moderators, Mr. Amick of the Rouen Museum, and as Belgium is not too far from Normandy, I will go to the Rouen Museum this summer. I was impressed by Mr. Godard, who speaking all the languages, Italian, French, Greek. I studied when I was young, long time ago, some ancient Greek, but I don't have, I'm sorry, Mr. Pavlos, I'm sorry that I cannot speak much of it. I just remember the end of the Anabasis when of Xenophon arriving at the sea and calling Thalassa, Thalassa. That was the end, but there were 300 pages before. So that was really interesting, and we Europeans, together with Americans, Westerners, we are having many things in common with China, with the Chinese people, with the Chinese artists. And David, please continue to develop that, continue to develop the dialogue, and we will always be at your side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bernard, for again sharing all your wisdom and your profound generosity, Bernard. And as we said, so many friends around the table, we worry about decoupling, and this is our answer to decoupling. I think this is very clear and practical enough. Now it's a great pleasure for me, and it will be the end of our seminar, to introduce Miss Vivienne Jia from Beijing. And Bernard, you were taken and moved by the background of Joan McEntee with Klimt and the Tang Dynasty sculptures, and therefore you had the triangle US, Europe, and China. But I am also taken and inspired by the backdrop from which Ms. Jia is going to talk to us. So very much welcome, Ms. Jia, and again, congratulations for the wonderful exhibition you organized in Shenzhen. And this is really the result of 11 years of patient work, and always you, Madame, inspired by the spirit of excellence that Mr. Bugalo was mentioning. So the floor is yours, Madame.
大家好，今天的论坛有来自不同领域的朋友们，有政要、社会活动家、学者、博物馆馆长、互联网总裁、媒体主编、收藏家、艺术家和企业家们。我们来自不同的国度，用不同的语言，从不同的角度开展对话。而我听到了一个共同的声音：文化文明的交融共通，是我们一起携手打开新世界大门的钥匙。歌德曾经说过，要想同世界联系，再也没有比艺术更可靠的途径。收藏如同狩猎，最有经验的猎人会在森林里分辨鹿折枝的痕迹，去追寻鹿的行踪，这是一个非常隐秘而高明的手段。而纵观每一件在历史中幸存的艺术品，也都在岁月中留下不可磨灭的痕迹。博物馆、收藏家、艺术品保护人、学者用最敏锐的目光探寻那些痕迹的同时，也还原了历史中那些最振奋人心的时刻。而11年来的我， 也从来没有放弃过寻找、保护散落世间的历史遗珍。每个收藏就像我的孩子，又像是我的老师。慢慢的，他们走进我的心里，流进我的血液里。收藏之路让我对历史敬畏，对未来谦卑。曾经我因为个人的欲望去收藏，直到有一天，一个声音告诉我，你只是一个过客，你的人生只有几十年，我们已经活了几百年。那些珍宝超越我生命中的极限，人生如此短暂，我应当安心地做好一个传承者。我明白我没有权利去占有它们，它们来自于历史，它们属于未来。古罗马的诗人曾经说，书籍自有命运，艺术品也一样，它们的命运应该属于博物馆，不是在博物馆里沉睡，而是在那里觉醒。他们的使命是陪伴一代又一代的年轻人成长，接受凝视的洗礼，无声地讲述着自己的故事。对美的追求，对知识的渴望，是艺术带给人们最好的馈赠。中国有一首古老的歌谣，出自《诗经》，我个人非常喜欢，讲述的是一个诗人在深秋开始了自己漫长而又艰难的寻找。所谓一人，在水一方。这种对美的探寻持续了几千年，影响了一代又一代的中国人。当我们展开一幅敦煌写经长卷，去仔细检视每一处墨迹，会发现这位不留姓名的唐代写经师用自己的生命在纸上走过的旅程。他灵魂驻留的地方，也是我们灵魂碰撞的地方。当我们合上写经，会发现旅程并未结束，我们都在路上，一条永恒之路，一起走出历史，共同走向未来。再次感谢大家，感谢论坛所有人。我不想说再见，我相信这不是结束，只是刚刚开始。谢谢。
Well, thank you very much. I have nothing to add. I can only again thank you, Madame, and to thank also Mapetier. The work you are doing is very, very important. Professor Louis Godard, always here to support dialogue between civilizations, absolutely key at this moment. Bernard DeWitt, a citizen of the world, a real citizen of the world. And of course, Madame Tia, thank you for supporting our work, and also Mr. Alex Fan. I would like to thank the team of East Langkun. They have been doing a wonderful job, and I want to tell you all that from now, actually it began yesterday evening. You are already famous in China, all of you, because you are on the social networks, and the feedback is extremely positive, and we will go on to communicate on this conversation in what we believe is an elegant way. I would like also to thank the wonderful Digi2CI team. I think you know some of them. They are working also, Mr. Bugalo, in a very modest way, but animated by this spirit of being in quest of excellence. General, thank you very much, because I know you are a very, very busy man in charge of one of the most important museums in France. It's a very important year for you, for your museum, for Napoleon. I have seen that you were with us from the very beginning to the end. I am personally very moved about that, and we will go on the conversation. Pavlos, wonderful Hellas House in Shanghai. Mr. Bugalo, we know the wonderful work you are doing to deepen the relations between Spain and China, Europe and China. And of course, Mr. Wallace Chan. And I can tell you, we will go to see your masterpieces. Vivian, you mentioned Donghuang, therefore the Silk Road. And today, so many of us, we mention the East and the West. And I think we need to stop thinking in terms of exclusive opposites. The East is not the exclusive opposite of the West. The East is in the West and the West is in the East. As like the yin is not the exclusive opposite of the yang, or the yang the exclusive opposite of the yin. The yang is not the yin, but the yang is in the yin as the yin is in the yang. Therefore, you said it very well, madam. All ends is also a beginning. So I do not declare the end of this conversation, but the beginning of it. Thank you very much and see you all very soon. Bye bye, 再见，再见。